Hey everyone. I'm like very into this going live on Thursdays. It's going to be my new thing. I don't want to like formally say that, but like we're going to be going live on Thursdays. I'm like very into it. And so anyway, today I wanted to have a little chat. And on my social channels, we've been talking a lot about intuitive eating. Listen, before I get into the whole thing, I need to say that if I could just walk around with a billboard, honestly, if I could walk around as an eating disorders and addictions therapist for over 20 years, I mean, I mostly feel 23, so it's hard for me to, say those numbers, but I don't mean I love aging, but you know what I mean. But anyway, if I could walk around with a billboard, having done this work for so long, here's what my billboard would say. If somebody tells you that there's one way, run away. And, I wrote a book called Breaking Up with Sugar. And in Breaking Up with Sugar, of course, I talk about breaking up with sugar. But the thing I talk about most of all is that we really need to be changing how we think about our relationship with food, because there's only two relationships that we have to be in this world. And one is with food and one is with ourselves. And they're connected. They're very connected. And listen, I don't know about you, but in the most important relationships in my life, the ones that I've been present for, the ones that have grown me, the ones that have changed me, a common thread of them is that they've grown and evolved and changed over time, because I've grown and evolved and changed over time. And I am, I'm an internet user. I'm a social media user like the rest of us. And something that I observe about, I mean, maybe all food and weight stuff, but certainly about the intuitive eating movement is that there's like a side shaming going on to say that, like, if you're not doing intuitive eating, then like you're doing it wrong. And first of all, if you haven't subscribed to my podcast, What You're Craving, like get on it. It's because I'm having so many people who are brilliant come and talk about this, including the author of Intuitive Eating. Like, we're having her on the show. We're having all these eating disorder specialists. Like, this is a conversation that we need to be having, because one size doesn't fit all. If somebody tells you that there's one way, run away. There's so many like intricate little pieces that I think that we're making this into such a black and white issue, intuitive eating, and that we're bad if we're doing, and that we're bad if we're not doing intuitive eating, that we're bad if we're having some guidelines around our relationship with food, that if we're saying, oh, there are meal times that work for me, structured meal times work for me, like that's diet culture and that's bad. But here are two things I just want to highlight: that if you're somebody who is struggling with, hi, Callie, if you're struggling with this idea of intuitive eating, like not jiving with you, number one, that might be your intuition talking. Like, one size doesn't fit all. And like, one method doesn't work. Like biodiversity, like human nature, like we're all snowflakes. And that actually makes this much harder. And it's where diet culture actually hijacks us, is to say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get this done? And that's like, well, because I'm special, because I'm unique. So here are two things I want to say to you, which is, number one, intuitive eating works for some people. I mean, I am never going to get into that argument to say that that isn't true. It's absolutely true. And good for you. I can also say, for me, intuitive eating nearly killed me. And I have, in my practice of over 20 years, I have treated so many people that have come to see me dying of trying intuitive eating. And certainly I mean that just a little like science nerd moment, like a function of their endocrine system and their hormone system being so dysregulated and so unregulated that they're coming close to diabetes and insulin resistance and all of these things, and aren't able to access their intuition because of their issues with sugar, right? And their issues with flour. And by the way, like, what I also know to be true as an eating disorder specialist is that sometimes if you're really knee deep in an eating disorder, like anorexia, your intuition is also in the ICU, as I've talked about on social media. And you need a lot more structure. In fact, in the treatment of anorexia, you begin with having somebody make you a meal plan and having somebody structure out like when you're going to eat. And you really have a lot of support in help in creating structure. And then sometimes you move into intuition. And I've seen the same really work with binge eating disorder and sugar addiction. So first to say, there are some people where it works that they just, eat what they want for an extended amount of time, and then they're able to sort of self-regulate through that. And there's some people who want and need guidelines and certainly the way that I work all of this food and weight stuff, it's like, it's always imperfect. I wouldn't say, I really need to say this to you, like guidelines around food is not always diet culture. And this is really like, we got to get on board with this because this is becoming so polarized, like intuitive eating is good and everything else is bad, or, everything is becoming so polarized in this food and weight space that it's going to end up hurting us. And we have to be a little bit more soft and balanced, not about our opinions about this, and also about our experience of this. Because listen, I'll just say for me, and by the way, my experience isn't your experience. I mean, you may relate to it, but it's not going to be the only thing. But, I almost died of intuitive eating. I broke up with sugar. I was, that really helped to get me clarity in my mind. And then about 10 years into that, I was able to eat what I would say humbly, not intuitively. Because when I'm really emotional, I just want to eat cookie dough, but humbly. And by that, I mean, I'm able to say, oh, okay, what is there I want today? What portions? I'm able to access my wisdom, my intuition, my hunger, all of that, not eat sugar, not eat flour. And there's all sorts of different people. There's somebody who posted on my Instagram page that said, yeah, like I was bulimic for 2 years and I gave up sugar and flour for 4 years. And now I can eat sugar again. So the idea that we're saying this, one way is good and one way is bad is it's toxic. It's bullying. It's a little bit gaslighting to say that if you're not intuitively eating, you're not good. Okay. It's almost like diet culture. I'll say it. It's almost like diet culture to say that. You are the boss, applesauce. So the only thing we know about what works, and I will say this over and over again, is self-determination, is you determining why you want to do this, how you want to get this done, what your internal motivation is for wanting freedom with food, and then figuring out how to do that. And part of that is, we have Annie Grace coming on the podcast in 2 weeks, who's incredible and talks a lot about a more harm reduction approach to alcohol, which is, I think, how we have to look at food a lot of the time too, and really learning about compassion and curiosity and falling forward. I mean, these are the ways that we heal, my friends. But the other thing about intuitive eating, which is really why I came on, but now I'm, somewhere else with talking about this, is this, because I do really believe wholeheartedly and believe, and by the way, there's a lot of science that supports it, that says that a lot of people have a addictive reaction to sugar. And that's not a forever, but it is for a lot of people. And a lot of people decide that they want to give up sugar. And then they're like, oh my God, I can see color. Oh my God, I'm not so hungry. And they're able to stabilize their endocrine systems and their nervous systems, and they don't want to go back. And so part of finding if you're in the midst of a full-blown sugar addiction and you're trying to intuitively eat, your intuition and your wisdom is like sort of in the ICU. You can't access that wisdom. And all that wisdom is telling you is, give me cookie dough, give me cookie dough, give me cookie dough. And you can't stop. Like there's a concept of intuitive eating, like maybe you'll stop, but there's this part, and also maybe you will stop, but maybe you want to stop earlier, like side note, I can tell, no, I'll tell you that another day. But, and so you have choices. And I want you to be really mindful about your consumption of what you're listening to, because if you're listening to so many masters and you're not accessing what is true to you, this is your big problem. You know what I mean? And the truth is, for so many of us, it's, finding something that we can really dig into. And there's a lot of research that supports this. Finding something we can really identify with and dig into, taking the guidelines rather seriously, but also creating goals that we can achieve, because achieving goals is actually what brings you back to yourself and gets you your self-esteem and self-worth, gathering a community and repeating this and then creating it for our own. You know, Anybody who's following a food plan perfectly is like, nearly eating disordered. Like life gets lifey. We like figure this whole thing out. So I just want to say, like, if you're feeling like, God, I need to be an intuitive eater and like I just can't, like, that may be true. And that may be true for you right now and maybe not later. Like, we don't like, if somebody tells you that there's one way, run away. And for many of us, and this has just been my experience in doing this work for so long, one of the things that's often in the way of you being able to be an intuitive eater is your nervous system and endocrine system's attachment to putting high levels of sugar in your body. And taking that out can sometimes restore the channels to be like, look at that. I can see clearly. And this is what I want to do now. And this is what I want to do now. And the other thing, which I'm having Dr. Kim Dennis on What You're Craving. She's an amazing eating disorder doctor. And when we were having just like our friend chat the other day, she was like saying such an interesting thing to me that I really want to share with you, which is that eating disorder, first of all, not everybody's eating disordered, and you got to know that, right? But if you are, they're so nuanced, and so that the solution is going to be very nuanced for some people. And so it's just, these are important things. I want you to be, informed consent is the way. And I want you to be informed, and I want you to feel empowered. And I want for you to feel like you're determining, and not me, and not the writers of this, and not this nutritionist on TikTok. Like you're the boss, applesauce. And yeah, like we need guides, and I am honored and a pleasure to be your guide. Like, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, this has to be your path, your relationship with food, and your relationship with yourself. So if something isn't sticking with you, listen to that. Yes, it may be some of like the blind spots that come with eating disorders and addictions. Absolutely. It may be part of a delusion. It may be part of denial. Yes, but it also may be true to you. And the only way we can figure that out is by trial, which means that we have to be cool if like it doesn't work. Like, oh, okay, that relationship didn't work. What did I get from this? What did I get from this? Yes, Kelly is saying on Facebook, I am the solution. That is exactly right. You are the solution. So, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. And also remember, people are selling things when they're telling you this. I mean, myself included. I do. I want you to come to my coaching. I want to hang out with you. I want to know you. I want to know everything about you. But what I want to know right now is this. What has been your experience with intuitive eating? What is your thought about it as a solution for you? Let's get into a conversation about this. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about you. Hey, What You're Craving is amazing. Such an amazing guest next week. Genevieve Agelson, really good friend of mine, obsessed with her. We're going to really like talk about eating disorders. It's a great conversation. This week's was amazing too. Kimberly Johnson talking about trauma. And, come sign up for my newsletter. I write you a little love letter every Sunday, and I want to know everything you're thinking about intuitive eating and beyond. And listen, if someone hasn't told you that they love you today, it's only 12:05, but I love you. See y'all soon.